So I'll be going live right now on Facebook and Instagram, and I'll be discussing about eat this to improve your chances of getting pregnant. So basically, I'll be talking about a food group that is really important that you should be including when you're trying to conceive and trying to get pregnant. And that food group is actually protein. So protein is extremely important for your fertility and hormone balance. And protein is made up of amino acids, okay? So it's kind of like you've got your full Lego set, which is the protein, and then the little Lego blocks is your actual amino acids. So your body will actually break down protein into amino acids so that you can sort of use it for different purposes throughout the body. And basically, I'm just referring to my notes here so that I stay on track for you tonight. So protein is extremely important for the structural building blocks for sperm and eggs, okay? And that's going to increase sperm and egg quality. So that's really important. And of course, if you're going to be increasing sperm and egg quality, you're going to be increasing the chances of fertilization and conception taking place. So amino acids are actually needed for the growth, maturation, and development of eggs and sperm. So really important. And it's used to produce hormones, so very important to produce things like estrogen and thyroid hormones in women and testosterone in men. So you can see why it's extremely important for both sexes to actually consume protein, so make sure that you do that. Now, it also regulates our blood sugar levels, which is extremely important because if you have high glucose and high insulin, this leads to inflammation in the body. If you've got inflammation in the body, this will actually lead to a hormone imbalance. So it's extremely important for that. So you can see how all these different bits and pieces all add up to, impact your fertility and hormone health. Now, the other thing is that protein or adequate protein in the diet is required for digestion. So if you're not consuming enough protein, you can end up with malabsorption. So that means that you're not absorbing vitamins and minerals that you need for your hormone balance, hormone production, and your fertility. So it's extremely important to be making sure that you have enough protein in your diet. Now, let's talk about sources of protein, because you're probably thinking, well, that's all very well, but what should I be consuming that contains protein in the diet? So you've got two different types, okay? You've got a complete protein source, which is mostly sort of animal-based sources. So things like fish, chicken, eggs, and dairy, but I would sort of usually recommend going for things like goats or sheep's yogurt, feta, or cheese instead of cow's dairy. And I can explain a bit more about that in another video as to why, but that's also a good source of protein. Now, in terms of fish, you need to be careful sort of what types of fish that you're choosing. You need to make sure that it's low in mercury levels. That's really important. So I'd be avoiding fish like tuna, shark, and things like that because they contain high mercury levels. So the best fish to go for are things like barramundi, herring, cod, ling, salmon, snapper, things like that. Sardines and anchovies are actually really good too because they're a smaller fish, so they're lower in mercury levels. In terms of meat, so things like chicken, duck, goose, quail, and turkey, that's a really good source of protein as well. In terms of red meat, I would actually eat this in moderation, so 1 to 2 times a week maximum. I wouldn't really go more than that because it can be quite inflammatory. And again, I can go over this and in another future video because there's a lot to cover in terms of that. Now eggs. Eggs is a complete source of protein. That's a great one to go for and so easy to prepare and eat, and it contains choline as well, which is extremely important for fertility. So that's a great one to include as well. I mentioned the dairy products, so yeah, just more going for sheep's or goat's sort of protein there. That would be the best source to go for. Now there's also plant sources of protein, but they're usually not complete. So it's extremely important if you are consuming sort of more of a vegetarian or vegan diet that you protein combine. So things like nuts and seeds is a complete protein. Legumes and a grain is a complete protein. So legumes is things like, your beans, so bolotti beans, chickpeas, kidney beans, split peas, all those kind of things, and then combining it with a grain. So I would recommend things like quinoa, buckwheat, brown rice, things like that. When you combine those together, it makes a complete protein because it has all the different amino acids there. If you consume them separate, it's not a complete protein, so that's why you need to make sure that you actually combine them. By the way, if you have any comments or questions or anything, please pop them in the comments below there for me, and I will answer them for you. I'm more than happy to do that. Now, in terms of seeds, I'm talking about things like sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, hemp seeds, chia seeds, linseeds, things like that. So making sure that you incorporate that into the diet as well, and remembering to combine it with a nut, so that makes a complete protein. Now, most nuts are okay and fine for during fertility, but I would tend to avoid peanuts and pistachios, and that's because it normally has a mold growing on it that's an aflatoxin, and to actually maintain that mold so that it doesn't sort of overgrow and flourish, they use a lot of herbicides and pesticides to actually manage that. So obviously when you're eating that, you're going to be causing a lot of hormone imbalance and fertility issues. So you can go for any other nut, but I'd probably recommend avoiding those just to be safe. Now, another option is to include protein powder. So that's totally fine to include as well to make sure that you're not getting enough protein intake. I would tend to go for the vegan sources of protein powders, so steer clear of dairy-based protein powders. Making sure that the vegan or vegetarian sourced protein powders have sort of a combination of protein. So, normally there'll be pea and rice, or there's quite a unique one called Rapid Vegan, and that has pumpkin seed and watermelon seed as well. So it's quite unique, but all those different things are giving you different sources of amino acids, and it makes it more complete when you actually consume one that's a combined one rather than just pea protein or rice protein. It's not sort of enough amino acids. So you can definitely incorporate that into a morning smoothie, or perhaps you can have a shake on the go as a snack. And brands I would recommend are Rapid Vegan, Sun Warrior. Some other ones are Amazonia. Macro Mike is okay as well, but I'd probably gear towards the first three. And most of those are organic, so they're free from herbicides, pesticides, etc. And you can get those from most health food stores and sports supplement places as well. And the aim really with protein is to make sure that you're consuming about 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. And the way that I like to simplify it for most people is to actually sort of say that you know, each meal you should be consuming about a palm's worth of protein. Your palm, so not Bill or Rebecca's palm, but your palm, because that's unique to you and your body size. So if you look at that, just make sure that every meal you're consuming enough protein that's about a palm size worth. I would also make sure that you're incorporating protein snacks into the diet too. So a good way to do this would be nuts and seeds as a snack. And as I said, you combine those together and that makes a complete protein. Protein balls as well is another great one. So if you're sort of craving something sweet, you can have that ready to go, and it's got the protein in there to kind of maintain your blood sugar levels as well. So that's a great one to reach for. Nut butter on most things is a great option as well. You know, you could pop some nut butter like almond butter or cashew butter on a brown rice cake and have that as a snack. Or you could grab, you know, an apple and pop some almond or cashew butter on top of that. So it's a great snack idea, and it's going to maintain those blood sugar levels, because you want to make sure that they don't rise because you don't want inflammation to result from that, and you don't want a hormone imbalance to occur as a result of that. So as I said, if you've got any questions, I'll just keep an eye out just to make sure that there isn't any questions so far in relation to that. So yeah, normally during fertility, you know, with protein sources, it is best to sort of stick more to the white meats and red meats in moderation, because they can be quite inflammatory and quite high saturated fat if you've still got the fat on them as well. So 1 to 2 times a week maximum for that, okay? I'm just trying to think if I've got anything else to mention in terms of that. So yeah, as you can see, protein as a food group is extremely important if you're trying to conceive. So please make sure that you're consuming that. So you know, I see some patients that are vegan and vegetarian, and I see it a lot where they don't actually have protein in the meal. So they'll have a soup and it will be all vegetables, but there'll be no protein in there. So just make sure that you're throwing legumes in there, so things like your beans, so kidney beans, bolotti beans, chickpeas, etc., and making sure that you soak them beforehand as well if you buy the dried form, because it contains phytic acid, which impairs our absorption of some of the minerals and vitamins. So just make sure that you do that prior to actually using them as well if you can. Otherwise, if you're going to go tinned, make sure that the tin is BPA free. And I'll talk more about that in another video for you as well. That's quite a juicy sort of content to go through with you. Just checking. Oh yeah, Margie, yep, I love almond butter on apple slices. Yeah, delicious. Because an apple is, you know, it's a carbohydrate. When you eat it, it often causes a raise in blood sugar levels. However, when you're eating it in the fruit form, it also contains fiber too, so it does slow it down a little bit, as in the peak or rise in glucose. But when you pop almond butter onto that, it will stabilize your blood sugar levels because it's that protein, okay? So yeah, I think that's everything that I wanted to cover with you today. I got through that a lot faster than I expected. And yeah, be sure to comment if you have any questions for me. I'll go in and answer it later. If you've popped on after the live, I'll go back in and answer them for you, okay? And I hope you have a great evening. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel, just make sure that you like and subscribe, and I will see you next week for another video. Okay, take care. Bye.